What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode. Coach Joe here with Hearthletics.com, and today I have the pleasure to be talking about the top 5 greatest quotes, in my opinion, from Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay, I might be butchering his last name, but regardless, you know him as Napoleon. Little short dude, always had his hand in his little coat, you know, whenever taking photos and whatnot, portraits. And regardless, he is probably hands down and always going to be known as one of the greatest military generals in history, the greatest conqueror in history ever, you know, plain and simple. And to be somebody with that much respect, authority, power as well, it's always interesting kind of learning about these guys, you know, and just in terms of like his own mindset. And, you know, Napoleon is definitely somebody with a unique mindset, to say the least. But I also just like it from a different perspective, you know, as we're going through this series of, you know, top 5 greatest quotes from, like, you know, Bruce Lee and Michael Jordan and, you know, Marcus Aurelius. Hearing this side, from the military side, from Napoleon, it's awesome. But you can see how they all come into tying in with one another, you know, in terms of the mindset and how important and how special that really is. So with that being said, let's dive right in. First and foremost, number 5 on the list for my top 5 Napoleon quotes is this: the best cure for the body is a quiet mind. You know, you got to think, like, Napoleon is this guy that has, you know, all these great militaries and commanders and chiefs and all that around him constantly. And, you know, in the midst of also the war, right? Probably a lot of people asking him, hey, what should we do, Napoleon? Should we do this? Should we do this? Should we attack here? Should we retreat? Like, what should we do? You know, and I love this, you know, because so much so when guys have a lot on their plates, they fail, right? They fall, they crumble. And it kind of cracks me up in a sense of, like, today's age, we really need to learn how to be more manly. We really need to learn how, like, okay, it's not as bad just because we got to go to work and we got responsibilities with our families to do on the evenings and weekends, right? It's not bad. It's not a bad life, you know? We don't know what pressure really is. We don't. We are, in today's culture, very sheltered, you know? So when I hear Napoleon talk about how the best cure for the body is a quiet mind, I'm left first and foremost with putting myself in his shoes in that era of time. You know? There's a lot of uncertainty, especially being in the middle of a war, but you can see what he says. You know, the best cure for the body is a quiet mind. And somebody that loves meditation, somebody that loves learning about the mindset and how powerful it truly is, I love this quote. Number 4 says, quote, end quote, there are only 2 forces in the world, the sword and the spirit. In the long run, the sword will always be conquered by the spirit. And I love this. I love this. I love this. I love this. This says everything, this quote, with, in my opinion, what it means to be a man, what it means to show up regardless of how you feel. Successful people do what they have to do, whether they feel like it or not, plain simple, you know. As a man, how you do one thing is how you do everything, okay? So let that sink in. Let me read this quote one more time. There are only 2 forces in the world, the sword and the spirit. In the long run, the sword will always be conquered by the spirit. Have you ever been maybe doing a physical test, right? Maybe a challenge, like maybe like a Tough Mudder or sparring race or, you know, whatever the case may be. Something where you're challenged and, like, at the same time, it's a physical and it's a mental challenge, you know? And you feel like giving up. You're like, maybe let's say it's a, you know, Tough Mudder, right? You're covered in mud, you're tired, maybe you can't get over the wall, whatever the case may be. There's so many different obstacles. You feel like giving up, but your heart, your spirit is telling you to progress. It's telling you to continue to push through. It's telling you, hey, don't give up. Don't throw in the white towel, Johnny. Continue to push through. We got this, you know? And I love this quote, hands down, because it just shows that also when somebody's mindset is in the right direction, like their physical body, their physical abilities, right? It might not last, but their mind is what's going to push their body to that next level. So always keep that in mind, that the spirit will always conquer the sword. The third top quote from Napoleon, it says, "The strong man is the one who is able to intercept at the will communication between the senses and the mind." Let me repeat that. A strong man, right, is the one who is able to intercept at will the communication between the senses and the mind. So when I read this quote, I'm like, man, that's really good. But I'm like, somebody might not think in terms of how I think. So I got to really dive into the weeds a little bit on this one. Here's how I want you guys to really take note of this quote. And hopefully, right, this is a golden one for you, okay? So once it says, right, the strong man is the one who is able to intercept at will the communication between the senses and the mind. Have you ever been in a situation where maybe you're kind of stuck? Maybe you're kind of dealing with some challenges, adversity, whatever the case may be, and you're kind of torn back and forth, right, so to speak, where it's like maybe at hand, the senses is like, hey, man, we're tired. Let's give up. Let's go home. Let's just quit. Maybe the senses is saying like, hey, I don't feel like waking up and getting out of bed this morning, right? It's a cold winter day. I want to sleep in, right? That's the senses. But your mind is like, hey, no. Discipline. Successful people do what they had to do whether they feel like it or not. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And what he's saying with this is a strong man, right? So a strong man is one that's able to say, hey, in the midst of the senses, maybe that's also the environment. Maybe that's also the conditions. Who cares? Your mind is going to be the one that's going to get you where you're trying to get to. So in the midst, right, a strong man is able to intercept at will the communication between the senses and the mind, right? The strong man is able to get in the middle and say, hey, listen, I understand the conditions, the environment, right? The senses, it's like this, but mind, body, spirit, we're going after this. We're getting there. Let's continue. Let's progress. So that's what I kind of take away when I read that quote, and I love it. Number 2 of top 5 Napoleon quotes, it says, men take only their needs into consideration, but never their abilities. Let me repeat that. Men take only their needs into consideration, but never their abilities. Just let that sink in, right? So many times people would think like, okay, hey, here I am at this job, this occupation, I got this family, so I can't go do this. I can't go, maybe train for a marathon. I can't go do this, maybe, get in shape. And I can't do this because of, work limitations and hours. And I can't do this because, I'm tied up with the weekends with the family. And so many times, right, just they forget about their abilities, right? Because they take in, once again, the environment, the conditions, the circumstances, but they forget about their abilities. So let me repeat this quote one more time. Men take only their needs into consideration, but never their abilities. The mind is such a powerful tool. And when you realize how much power that you have within your own mindset, you realize here that you're unlocking something, right? There is unlocked potential within yourself. You can shift everything. Your reality, your physical conditions, your mental conditions, all within your mindset. All in terms of how you train your mindset. Whether that is affirming the right things, whether that's meditation, whether that's visualization, whether that's a different perspective shift. And I think so many times guys forget in our own abilities. And this is why when I read this quote, it's like you almost got to look back at your past and see how far you truly came. And see that, hey, there was some bumps in the road that you overcame. And because you overcame them, you got the reward. So never discredit your own ability. Just because the environment, just because the conditions, right, is maybe some smoke and mirrors, right? Maybe it's some fog. Maybe it's some darkness. Don't ever discredit your own abilities. because that is what's going to get you to where you're trying to get to in life. And the last quote that I've probably said on at least 50 different podcast episodes, and I'll say it again till the day I die. The reason most people fail instead of succeed is because they trade what they want the most for what they want right now. We see this all the time, especially being in the health and fitness industry. Somebody wants to lose weight, so they're like, oh, let me go ahead and cut out carbs, right? So they start losing a bunch of weight, not knowing that weight loss and fat loss are two different things. Not knowing that, let's just say, cutting out carbohydrates, you're losing water, right? You're not restoring your glycogen stores within your body. Carbs store glycogen. Carbs store water within the body. Don't believe me? Well, hey, what happens if you drop your phone in the toilet or the pool? Go to Google, and Google is going to tell you, hey, put your phone in a bowl of white rice, right? Or any kind of rice, I should say. And it's going to extract all the water molecules out of it. And your phone's going to work again. What are the odds of that? Same thing as take a little bowl of oatmeal. Put some liquid in there. Put some water or some milk in there. And just come back. Right? You're going to see it's all going to just, the oatmeal is going to absorb that liquid. How do you think you make overnight oats? Simple stuff like this that people just forget about. You know? So once again, the quote is, the reason why most people fail is because instead of succeed is because they want to trade what they want the most for what they want right now. Meaning, what did I just tell you about cutting out the carbs? Well, hey, people hear about that being the quickest way to lose weight, and they're not wrong. Because once again, cut out the water, right? Water weight and fat loss are two different things. But what they fail is understanding that, hey, one, it's probably not sustainable to cut out carbs the rest of your life. Two, what happens when you hit that plateau? What happens when you cut out all your carbohydrates and you still can't lose the weight, right? Maybe it's time to switch things up. Instead of focusing on, overnight success and reaching your goals, maybe it's time to focus on what you truly want. And maybe that is to feel confident. Maybe that is to, I don't know, let's say get six-pack abs. Maybe that is to learn how to fit in your favorite foods. Maybe that's learning how to eat while traveling and dining out. Maybe that's learning how to train your body properly while also traveling and going on vacation, whatever the case may be. Right? And these are just all things that we focus on at Heartletics within our 7 essential fat loss habits, where it's giving somebody all the tools to succeed on their health and fitness journey long term, because that's what they want, right? But here's the thing. That's what they truly want the most, not just at the moment. So it's like you got to let that sink in, and you can change this around with anything. It's like somebody could, once again, hey, let's play the lottery. Once again, awesome, cool, we win the money, great. But it's like if you don't establish the right habits, the right mindset of what to do with that money, how to be a good steward of it, eventually you're going to lose it all. You're going to end up spending it all away. So it's like really take this quote in consideration, because I love this quote. And I'll repeat it one more time. The reason most people fail instead of succeed is because they trade what they want the most for what they want at the moment. Just let that sink in, So many times we're very impatient, and me teaching this to my son as he's growing up, right, is like, hey, patience, patience, patience. And so much so that, hey, odds are if you have a friend that's struggling on a health and fitness journey and they just got started, let's say they're exercising, they're eating healthy, and it's been a few weeks, and they're like looking at themselves like, man, I only lost 3 pounds, all right, only lost 5 pounds. They might be feeling discouraged. Odds are you would tell your friend, hey, don't give up, don't quit. It's going to take some time. You just got started and you look great. It's not like you're doing anything crazy. You're not, sabotaging your results by, doing something that's not sustainable. Hey, you're doing all the right things. Continue to trust the process, continue going on. We could probably tell our friends that and help them, but we have the hardest time telling ourselves that, and giving ourselves that own friendly advice, So keep it plain and simple, right? In the back of your head. Don't ever try to cut, corners and try to really just say, okay, hey, I'm giving this up, even though it's not sustainable, just to see some quick wins right now, because odds are you're going to fall off the wagon. You're going to have regaining that weight right back, and most importantly, wasting time And here on earth, that's the most precious commodity there is. Time is finite, right? Plain and simple. You only have one life to live, so make sure you live it the best way possible. And honestly, if you do that by focusing on becoming the best version of yourself each and every day, that is a life that you're going to look back and say, hey, I lived it to my fullest. Because you decided to just always focus on better yourself and pour into you so you can eventually pour back out into others as well. So hopefully you guys got some value. Hopefully you guys got some inspiration from today's episode. If you did, definitely go share this with a friend, family member, maybe on your social media page. Once again, these were the top 5 quotes from Napoleon in terms of my favorites. And let me know, right? Obviously, what was your favorite as well? And with that being said, guys, this has been Coach Joe with Heartletics.com. And as always, I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Peace out, Girl Scouts.